Okay, let's explore what it's like to be invited into the journey of someone else's life when they invite us to explore with them. The first person that I sat with at the old studio who called me, and she had had a vision that she was exploring with me, and she asked, would that be a possibility? And I was so honored to be invited in to share the journey with her. Prior to her arrival, I did an invocation, like we did all the years I was at the ashram. Prior to almost everything we did there, we would invite grace, align with the lovely eternal essence that we are, and let that be lived into whatever we were getting ready to experience. So prior to her arrival, I did an invocation, inviting grace, asking to please let me be love. Please let me be the purest instrument of grace I can be today with her. And I prepared a space for us to sit and had prepared some tea for us to have together. And there were many things that we experienced that first day together. It was life-changing for me. It was the day that the phrase "the wanter" arrived. It was the first time I had ever shared what we now call the living practice with someone. Previous to that day, I just always did that whenever I was having emotions. I had learned it from my mom, and I called it burning in it. And it was the arrival of the Name That Thought practice that day, emerging out of cat-mouse meditation. And I shared with her the loving blessing practice. And we sat together probably 4 or 5 hours. And it was amazing, mutually beneficial. And when she left, I sat in my chair reflecting on what I had just experienced and knew how lucky I was to get to experience that with her. And she had asked if she could continue exploring with me. And I was so honored that it had been so helpful to her. It felt so good to be useful and helpful. My whole life, I always wanted to be helpful, beneficial to others. And here I could feel was the beginning of a lovely possibility of exploring with people this way. She asked if it would be okay to mention me to her friend. And I said, absolutely. So her friend came in. And prior to her arrival, I did an invocation and prepared tea. And she and I had a wonderful exploration together. And when she left, it was clearly so beneficial and useful to her. And I sat there and just was reflecting on how wonderful it was to be so helpful. And she asked if she could mention me to her friend. I said, absolutely. And I could feel the momentum of this building, and I was feeling so good about this, and it was so wonderful to get to be of benefit to others and share these natural ways that I had found had been so helpful to me on my journey. The Name That Thought practice that emerged out of cat-mouse meditation, and the living practice, the loving blessing practice, chanting, Madhya Vikasa, Shiva Bhavana, Viveka, Seva, Atma Vichara, Nan Yar. one after the other with these 3 people, we would explore ways that I had learned at the ashram and in all my years with 11 other teachers for 4 more years after my 7 years at the ashram. And it was so wonderful. Well, the third person, we scheduled a time and I did an invocation and asked to be a pure instrument of grace and be of benefit. And she came in. And it was a different kind of experience. It did not go well at all. It just got all off the rails. It wasn't helpful to her at all. She left after about 3 hours, and I just felt terrible. Sitting there in my chair, reflecting on what had just happened, I was not feeling good about it. I was not feeling so lovely like I had with the previous 2 women. I was feeling like a fraud and a phony and a failure. I had let her down. I had not been able to be helpful to her at all. And I just spiraled into this deep inner dialogue of self-loathing. Who do you think you are? You're such an idiot. What makes you think that you have any right sitting with people like this? You're such a fraud, such a phony. Just spiraling down, down, down into the depth of despair and hopelessness, feeling so terrible that I had so let her down. It wasn't helpful to her at all. And so there was enough awareness to realize that I needed to burn in it, to face it, to do what we now call the living practice, that I had always called just that I need to burn in this, which I had learned from my mom. So I turned all my attention toward it and just admitted to being failure, just a complete abject failure, just feeling it. It was in my heartbreak that I had let her down so badly, hadn't been helpful to her at all. It's very emotional for me to remember this and return to this. And so I faced it and burned in it, and it spiraled and spinned. And then I also, as we do in the living practice, then started to include that there's also the awareness that I am that's aware of this inner dialogue and this depth of despair and this intense heartbreak feeling of having so failed at being helpful to her. And as I continued to face it and realize the core belief of being unworthy, of being not good enough, and this was an event that was clear evidence of that. I was so unworthy to be sitting with people. So terrible at this, not good enough at all for this. And it just kept spinning and spinning. And then I would rest back out into the awareness of it and notice it again. And little by little, it started to soften and release, as it does when we let ourselves be available to the living practice without any agenda. We just have to be willing to burn in it, feel it, face it, without any agenda. We're not doing it to fix it, solve it, figure it out, get it to go away. We just have to be willing to burn in it, which I did. And little by little, it started to release and started to release more and more. And I could feel the awareness that I am just so available to this inner dialogue, this limiting thought and belief of our human mind that we're unworthy and that we're frauds and phonies and failures. It just started to release more and more and more. And then all of a sudden, as it released, I realized, oh, there was a someone who was sitting with them. In that moment, I realized there was an identity. I called him in that moment the great helper. The great helper had been involved in this with these first three people. And the great helper is actually the wanter masquerading as true nature. He's the great helper, and he gets to feel good about himself if they give him an indication that what, in air quotes, he did helped them. He gets to be okay if they're okay. He gets to feel good about himself if they show some sort of sign that what, in air quotes, he did helped them feel better, have less suffering. This is coming ultimately from a very pure place, but then the wanter gets in there and then creates an identity as the great helper. And he doesn't get to be okay unless they're okay. So his sense of okayness is dependent on an outcome. He's only okay if they show some sort of sign before they leave the studio that what he did was helpful to them. And the third person did not give any indication whatsoever. In fact, you could tell it wasn't helpful to her at all. And it was so intense to have to face that and then realize that there was an identity that was in play for these first three people. The wanter had creeped in and had now created an identity as the great helper. He gets to be okay when what he did helped them. So he doesn't get to be okay if they leave the studio and don't give an indication that something helped them. So in that moment, there was this lightness, this wonder, this playfulness, this honoring of my wanter creeping in and trying to help out. And I thanked my wanter. Oh, thank you so much, wanter, for wanting to be helpful to her. That's so kind of you. And my wanter relaxed and I rested back. And in that moment, I realized, wow, I need guidance of how to do this without the great helper creeping in there, because he has attachment to outcomes. He needs it to go a particular way for him to feel good about himself. If I continue to be with people like this, I'm just going to be wrecked unless they show me some very clear signal that the great helper did good work that day and they got to be better because of him. So I did an invocation in that moment and I asked, dear divine grace, please give me guidance. How do I navigate this? How do I be with people without getting pulled into this? And right in that moment, with my eyes closed, I saw a slowly rotating circle of light, white, blue light, slowly rotating clockwise in front of me. And I could see that it had two distinct halves. It had two parts that made it a whole circle. And I could see that you had to have both halves of the circle for it to be the complete circle. And I could feel it was the compass. It was the liberation circle. It was the way to be free while sitting with people. And so then I wondered, well, what are these two distinct parts that make up this whole circle? And then as I asked for guidance, what are the two distinct parts that make up this liberation circle that's slowly rotating clockwise in front of me? And right in that moment, they revealed themselves to me. The two parts revealed themselves to me that make up the whole circle. That is freedom, the way to be with others without the great helper creeping in. And the first half, just keep showing up for the lovely possibility. The second half, without being attached to the outcome. You need both parts for it to be a full circle. We just keep showing up for the lovely possibility without being attached to the outcome. And as long as we're not attached to the outcome, then we get to be okay no matter how it turns out. And the great irony is, if we're not attached to the outcome, we're going to be willing to keep showing up for the lovely possibility, because we're going to be very stabilized in our true nature. And from our true nature, we're very willing to keep showing up for the lovely possibility for them. We'll keep showing up for them, and we'll keep showing up for them. And as long as there's no attachment to outcome, then we're going to be willing to keep showing up for the lovely possibility. And as long as there's no attachment to outcome, however it goes for them, we get to be okay. We get to be at peace. We get to realize that we are who we really are, no matter what goes on for them. Because very often, they're not going to be okay. If we have even the tiniest shred of outcome orientation, like my great helper identity did, he had outcome orientation. He wanted to make sure that they were okay. And because the third person didn't give my great helper any indication that she was okay when she left, he was wrecked. He was feeling like he was a fraud and a phony. If there's even the tiniest shred of outcome orientation, there will be potential suffering if they don't show an indication that they're okay. But as long as there's no attachment to the outcome, then we get to be okay, at peace, resting in true nature, irregardless of how it goes for them. And the amazing truth is, we're actually more beneficial to them when there's no attachment to outcome, because they can feel the difference. When there's no attachment to outcome, they can feel that. They can feel there's no pressure, there's no agenda coming at them. They can feel that there isn't some great helper that wants to have some sort of indication that what I did helped you, right? Show me some indication that what I did helped you. They can feel the difference when there's no agenda. And it actually is very beneficial to them, because they don't feel pressured by us. They don't feel like they have to, in some way, show us that what we did was helpful to them. We become the living invitation. Just by being in our true nature with them, it's a very beneficial way to be with them. And we get to be okay as long as we're not attached to the outcome. And we'll be willing to keep showing up for them. We keep showing up for them. That's the lovely possibility, showing up for them, being available to them. And as long as we're not attached to the outcome, freedom from the suffering of the great helper. Yes. And from that day on, every exploration that I have with everyone, I do an invocation where I invite grace, and I add in, please let me not be attached to the outcome. I invite in all the divine friends. I invite in my divine self, their divine self, and I say, please, please, please let my attention remain absolutely stabilized in the pure, eternal, absolute love that I am. And please allow my physical body, my human vehicle, to be the purest instrument of grace it can be today, such that they can be released from the limits of their mind, that they can directly experience their true nature in the most pure and beneficial way, so that they can let the love that they are be lived into the world in the most pure and beneficial way. And please, please let me be not attached to this outcome. Please, please let me not be attached to this outcome. Please let me just show up for this lovely possibility with them without being attached to the outcome. And then I release that into the field. And then what a lovely possibility. We can let ourselves play together, explore, be in the pure availability of what presents itself moment to moment to moment. Just showing up for the lovely possibility without being attached to the outcome.